Abby. How you doing?
Hey Sierra, happy Thursday. I'm doing great. How are you today, friend?
I am also doing great. I know we are both just sharing out the space amongst our accounts. Get a few people in the room. Happy Thursday to you as well. I'm looking forward to Friday and the weekend.
I can't believe how fast this week went, at least from my perspective. And here in the Midwest, I don't know how it's feeling for you. It's first day of fall and it actually feels like fall today. It's sunny and beautiful, but there's a nice crisp in the air. And honestly, the last few days, it's been like hotter than it was in August, although it's like we hit some 90-degree days in the last couple of days. So it's a real shift this morning and it's lovely.
Oh my goodness, it's starting to cool off a bit here as well. We had like scorching weather all summer and it's finally habitable outside to like go outside and not feel smothered by the humidity. Um, yeah, I'm excited to talk about crystals today. Oh my God, we're going on 2 months that we've been doing these weekly spaces. The last 2 months, we have covered such a broad variety of topics, everything from boundaries to routines to yoga. And now we're almost kind of getting back to our roots, and we're going to talk about crystals.
We really kind of have come full circle in the couple of months that we've been doing these. And I love that, I don't know, every week seems to build off each other, but there have been little things and tidbits sprinkled in the mix. And I'm so excited to dive in and talk about really your area of expertise, something that I've been drawn to and excited by. But I love that this is your jam. So it's going to be a real opportunity to be able to really pick your brain and geek out on stuff I know we both love.
I love the sound of your birds in the background. They sound so happy. And I love that someone down in the listeners has a matching PFP with me and has Amethyst Crystal Baby as their profile picture. And I know that is Brianna, our digital marketing intern. So, hello, my dear. Thank you for being here and participating in our Twitter spaces. And welcome to our other listeners. We're going to kind of get into things. And then usually what we do is toward the end of the space, like the last 20 minutes or so, we will open up the floor to speaker requests. And at that point, it's a good time to ask any questions or contribute to the conversation in whatever way you feel called to. It's an hour-long space, and we try to honor everyone's time. So we'll be wrapping it up in about an hour. But yeah, I'm super excited to talk about crystals today. I have so much to say. So it's like, where do we start? Where do you think we should start, Abby?
Gosh, I don't know. I have a list of a million questions. I feel like, do we start in the beginning? Were you like a crystal kid? Were you nerding out on rocks and picking up rocks out of your yard and finding crystals and all things magical, even as a little kid? I feel like we've talked about it, but I don't remember. We can start there. We can start with, I don't know, the big guns. What are our favorite crystals in our collection? I really don't even know where to start. So what do you have in mind?
Oh my goodness, I know there is so much to talk about. Why don't we start about where the journey started, and then we can kind of get into basics of crystal healing and like personal favorites and crystals for beginners. Um, I believe in our very first Twitter space, going back 2 months ago now, I did a little introduction, but I'll do another quick one just to give some context. Um, so I am on our Crystal Store account. I'm on Good Juju's account. Good Juju was created in 2018. We just turned 4 years old. We're having a 4-year birthday sale right now, and I'll talk about that more later. Anywho, I created Good Juju in 2018 after discovering that I have PMDD, which I have talked about at length in Twitter spaces. I basically have amped up premenstrual syndrome. I get really irritable and depressed and anxious leading up to menstruation, but like not in a normal way, in a way that like really affects my ability to engage as a normal person. I started down this natural wellness path because I was really resistant to taking medication. So I started asking my therapist and my doctor, like, what else can I do? Like, I don't want to take hormonal birth control. I don't want to take a mood regulator or an antidepressant. Like, what are my other options? And that kind of opened the door to me, the door for like yoga and mindfulness and meditation and essential oils and massage and crystals. And I kind of started in acupuncture. I started down this path of experimenting with different things to see what would offer me some PMS relief and kind of help me chill out every month. And that's how the Juju journey started. Juju is the first crystal store to accept cryptocurrency. We have a crystal NFT collection called Juju Gallery that unlocks a lifetime discount. We have a token gated shopping experience for people who have our NFT. So we're very Web3 friendly. That being said, in terms of like exposure to crystals before 2018, I definitely was a collector of many things as a child. Anything that I found outside that I thought like it was so weird. I thought everything was an artifact or a piece of history. Like I would find like an old bottle cap and be like, "Oh my god, this is this is from the ruins." I have a lot of earth energy in my chart, and I loved being outside. So whenever I found a rock that was a pretty color or anything shiny that my parents deemed wasn't dangerous, I would usually take home and put in a little box. So I've always been a collector. But really, this last 4 or 5 years, my crystal journey has really kind of opened up for me. But what about you, Abby? I know you're also a crystal lover and collector, and I know that I'd imagine it has something to do with your yoga journey, but you tell me.
Honestly, I as I hear you talking and I'm thinking about this, I think I've decided I was just a raven as a kid. There were shiny things. I was out there picking it up, and same thing. It everything felt like an artifact. I can totally resonate with that. I'm gonna come upstairs so my birds aren't quite so loud. No, I've been a collector of all things metaphysical, all those things from as long as I can remember. I always just felt like there was absolute magic everywhere I turned in life, and crystals really embodied that. So I definitely have always been into crystal jewelry or rocks or shells or things of that nature long before yoga. Sorry, I'm out of breath now. In fact, Time Life, I know this sounds weird, but Time Life used to have a series of books. Uh, they're like black bound. I haven't seen them, in fact, since I was in junior high. I was like 13 years old in our library. They had things on like candle and crystal magic and on Wicca and paganism and, all of these kind of natural spiritual things. So, 13-year-old boys were looking at like girly mags. I was a 13-year-old girl in the back of a library looking at like crystal books and candle magic books and kind of afraid because my mom was a bit of a holy roller and thought any of that stuff was like of the devil. So I would sneak around trying to learn about this stuff in a conservative town. So, nope, I've been a crystal nerd my life.
I am not surprised, and that is that is so funny about your mom. I remember when I first got into crystals, like I went to this women's wellness retreat, and it was like they had meditation and they had like a cacao ceremony and crystal workshop. And I remember my mom calling me and being like, "Did you join a cult?" And I was like, mind you, my mom is Puerto Rican and Italian, and I was raised Roman Catholic, like all the rituals and all the sacraments. So my mom was definitely not into me deciding to explore crystal healing and things of that nature. She was not a fan. But it's so interesting because I will say over the last year, especially once my parents realized it wasn't a fad and they saw like, oh no, she has the whole, she has the store. Like this isn't going anywhere. They've become much more open-minded, and my mom actually went as far as buying a few crystals from our store within this last year without me prompting her or saying, hey, look at this. Like she just went on the site and found ones that resonated with her, and I was like, oh, that's so sweet.
I love that. I think that is super sweet. I can't say my mom ever really came around. I think she still prays for my salvation, and that's okay. But I what's really cool is that my kids, it seems to be coming back in, like, I don't know if fashion is the right word, but I've sensed this renaissance going on. I really noticed it when I came here to Web3, kind of around this time last year, maybe a little later in the year. People all over the place, especially young people, seem to really be interested. There seems to be this resurgence, right, of people kind of thirsty for this knowledge of the wisdom of the earth. And I've noticed it in my own kids, which is exciting because usually anything I'm into, they're like, yeah, no thanks. They hate yoga, for example. But the crystals I never really talked a lot about. I've just had them in the background as my own kind of personal thing. And so when they started getting into it, my girls especially, my youngest, she would start asking questions about crystals or kind of different kind of witchy things. And I kind of took a step back and gestured grandly, like, honey, look at this collection of books I have and look at this collection of crystals I have. Yeah, I think I can answer some of your questions. And then she was like, oh, I guess we do have all that stuff here at the house. She just hadn't really noticed because I hadn't talked about it. So it's been fun to see them coming to their own interest in some of these things.
Oh, that is so sweet and so exciting. I can't imagine. Like, it's so interesting because I feel like when you have direct access to something, you're not as interested in it. Like, for example, I grew up and my dad was a DJ, and I grew up with all this like really fancy recording equipment in our house, and like these different like tools to make beats and record music. And like, I remember I would have friends over and they'd be like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like, you can record music at your house, and like you can, and I was just like, whatever, like, I don't care. Like, that's something lame and dorky that my dad does in his free time. And it's so funny because I feel like it's the same for your kids and like yoga and crystals and stuff. They're like, okay, whatever. Like, if mom's into it, like, it can't be cool. So it's just so funny how, as you start to mature, your perspective kind of broadens and you're like, oh, maybe this is interesting. That being said, I feel like maybe we'll talk a little about crystal healing basics. So we have a smaller crowd today. It's just a few of us here. That's totally cool. Sometimes it's like that. This is going to go up on YouTube and people are going to be able to play it back. But for anyone who's listening who is not really sure what we're talking about in terms of crystals and crystal healing, crystal healing is energy healing. It is a non invasive vibrational healing. As we all know, energy is everything, and everything is energy. Everything is vibrations. And this is nature, and this is confirmed by human science. It is not made up, it's not woo woo. Scientifically, crystals are some of the most orderly structures that exist in their nature. Their crystalline matrices and structures are seen nowhere else in nature, maybe aside from like snowflakes. And their special compositions, their molecular compositions are obviously influenced by the environment that they're formed in. Some crystals are formed under pressure, some are formed as the result of a meteor hitting the earth, some are formed from extreme heat. And this results in particular frequencies and vibrations that are associated with the crystal. So, the entire premise of crystal healing is basically that crystals hold and transfer and transmute and amplify energy. And they absolutely do. It's not made up, it's not assumed. Crystals are used in electronic circuits, they're used in our phones and our computers. And as human beings, we have our own electromagnetic fields that crystals interact with. And ultimately, when we use crystals for healing, we're using them in hopes of helping realign our energy. Crystals are naturally high vibrational, so they're an easy way to kind of correct your frequency, or as we like to say, raise your vibration. Oftentimes, crystals are used specifically to help energetically unblock certain chakras, which are different energy centers throughout our body. I do think it's really, really important to note, almost as a disclaimer, that crystals will not transform your life overnight. Crystals, like other natural supplements, take time and continued exposure. And while you might not be sensitive to the energy of crystals immediately, the more time you spend in their company, the more you'll be able to kind of dial in on how they affect your energy. And also, two, crystals. So, one, they're not going to transform your life overnight. And two, crystals will not work if you don't believe they'll work. And I say this because the placebo effect is very real. And what it should be called is the power of the human mind. Our mind and our intentions are what give things power and meaning. And our beliefs and what we have faith in is what creates our reality. A crystal is only a powerful tool to set intentions and become more conscious of your energy if you believe it. So you need to be open and willing on this journey because your skepticism is a barrier. So that's some kind of basics and information. What do you think, Abby?
That was so much great information. I loved everything that you said there, and I think it's extremely true. I think all of these things are tools. It's the power of the mind that those tools are amplifying and enhancing. And so it absolutely, I think your mindset is everything when you're coming into working with these set of tools. But yeah, it's the power of the mind that really, really drives that. I think it's so interesting that you can look at really everywhere in the world. And correct me if you think this is not true, but I feel like, you know, it seems like all of the ancient civilizations utilize crystals in some way. It isn't new technology, right? It's been around for since the beginning of time. And it is so interesting that science now can catch up with things that the ancient wise ones and the yogis and ascended masters, that they had access to knowing already. Now I feel like science is catching up to be able to confirm that, yes, absolutely. That's why we have quartz crystal in our watches, right? Because it's able to keep that time every second. It blows my mind to know that science can back up these, these things that the ancient ones have known forever. So I think it really is worth digging into and taking time to do your own research, right? And to see which crystals really resonate with you. Do you find that to be true? I feel like even though there's say, there are these set of correspondences, and typically amethyst works well for X, Y, and Z, and typically moldavite works well for X, Y, and Z. It may not be that moldavite works well for you and your energy. That seems to be true for me. What is your experience with that? Do you think that's true?
I do think, I think oftentimes when people think about healing properties for different crystals, the easiest kind of no brainer thing is like matching the color of the crystal to the corresponding color chakra. And it's like, okay, well, if it's a blue crystal, like it's a throat chakra crystal and it's going to help you with this. And honestly, I do feel like the best way to choose a crystal is intuitively. And like you and I could talk about which crystals resonate with which chakras and what the healing properties are for days, but ultimately, yes, having your own bond and connection with your crystals is most important, and that starts with choosing what you feel called to. So standing in front of like a selection and just seeing what calls out to you and what sparks interest is a really good way to choose your first crystal, or just any crystal in general. And what's so interesting is I promise you, afterwards, you're going to look up the healing properties for whatever it is you picked, and you're going to be amazed by your intuition's power to know exactly what you need. Because this has happened to me so many times where I just go into the crystal store with no agenda and I'm like, I'm just going to get what feels good. And then I get home and I'm like, oh my God, how is this what I needed? That being said, I will say, like, sometimes people have a barrier of not being physically near a metaphysical store. Like I definitely, like, it's not like a Walmart or a gas station where like every 5 to 10 minutes there's one on every corner. Like there are definitely people who live in areas where there is no access to a metaphysical store that has crystals. So there are definitely ways around this. Like you can look at pictures online. And something that we did recently at Good Juju was we made this, and I think I showed this to you, Abby. It's like a crystal quiz that's kind of meant to like emulate like a virtual metaphysical store, and it like shows you a picture of like all these crystals, and then you intuitively just like pick the pictures that you like, and then it generates a selection of crystals kind of based on your intuitive choices. So I think that's a cool option for people who don't have access. But I always tell people, like, just go to a metaphysical store and just like give yourself 45 minutes to just walk around and hang out.
Definitely good advice, but like you said, it isn't like Walgreens or whatever we have in our town where every 5 seconds you've got another one. Some areas are better than others. I love that, you, for example, I knew I needed a double terminated quartz a while ago, and you sent me video of being able to choose from a variety, and I thought that was such a beautiful way to do it. I just figured I'd pick from a picture, but to have people pick up and show you the different angles was almost like being in a metaphysical store myself, where I could connect with it before I saw it, and being able to choose in that way is really awesome. I have some nice little stores here locally, but I'm not going to find that special thing. So I love that you're able to curate those things for people. So providing that access if you don't have in your local town or even nearby, 2 towns over or whatever it might be, it's nice that there are folks like you that are providing those resources and making it more accessible. Because yeah, the crystal kind of chooses you. And I love what you said that you'll go in and you might not even have something in mind, and suddenly you're drawn to this thing. And if you listen to your intuition, pick it up and take it home, like you said, every single time you're kind of blown away, like, oh, I did need that. Your body and your intuition know. So I really love that.
I love personal shopping for crystals for people. It's like so fun. Like, obviously, we have an assortment of stuff on the website that is just there and available. But occasionally, I'll have the pleasure of having someone reach out and be like, hey, like, I'm really looking for X, Y, and Z, but I don't see it in your store. And I'm just curious, like, are you able to get it, or do you know where I can find it? And I had an experience recently where, for the first time ever, I was able to help someone find like huge museum quality amethyst clusters, like, and when I say huge, like, these suckers were like 45 pounds each. They were so big, like they were legit something you would see in like a geology section of like a museum. And I don't know, as a small business owner in like a smaller crystal store, like, stocking a $3,000 crystal in my shop is just not something I do, because it's not accessible to my average customer, and it's very rare that anyone expresses interest in that type of crystal. But just after getting into NFTs, actually, I guess I stumbled upon somebody with a few Ethereum ready to blow, and they wanted some big crystals, and I had the pleasure of helping them procure these directly from Brazil, and it was so beautiful and amazing. So definitely something I enjoy about my job, and it was so lovely to help you find that quartz, Abby.
What a cool experience though, finding cathedrals like that. That would be such a neat thing to be a part of. Like you said, that's not something you're going to keep stock on hand for the most part. So to be able to help someone curate that would be such an exciting thing. And yeah, no, I love both the crystals you helped me find. One is my forever piece, and I was so excited talking about how crystals will kind of guide you on what they're meant to be or do. The second one came later, and I had full intentions of keeping it. I held it in my hand. It's fucking gorgeous. I loved it. And it right away, after spending even just like 5-10 minutes with it, I kept picking it up and spinning it around and feeling it in my hand. And I thought, this isn't mine though. And I kind of sat with it for a moment, and the crystals will tell you where they want to go and what they want to do if you really tune into it. I know that can sound crazy saying that out loud, but that crystal really guided me to give it back to my community. We had a full moon drawing that I was behind on anyway, a giveaway, and so that's it weighed on my heart that that's what that crystal wanted, and so it feels so right and so good to be able to share that with someone. I just sent that off today, so as much as I love collecting crystals, I almost love giving them away just as much. I don't know if I think I did tell you this recently. I have never been able to keep a hold of rose quartz. And we all know rose quartz, right, is the whole thing about self-love. And, as a mom and as a, nurturing person, I tend to give that part of me away a lot. But boy, we're supposed to keep some of it for ourselves. So I recently, it's not even a nice piece, but I recently got myself some rose quartz and I've been wearing the hell out of it. And gosh, it makes a difference when you draw something into your life that's meant for you and you go ahead and give some time to hang on to it when you're supposed to. But that being said, when you're not supposed to and you're supposed to give it away, you should listen to that as well. So do you find yourself doing the same thing, giving a lot of your crystals away, or do you have the opposite problem with the store? Do you want to buy all of them and keep all of them for yourself? That would be a challenge.
It's like a balance of both. Um, I am, I guess, I don't know if it's because I have the crystal store and I have like an abundant, I have a ridiculous, I was just thinking about it the other day. I was like, oh my God, like I probably have 2,500 crystals in my house right now. And like, I'm not kidding. Like, I have, I have the entire inventory of our website in my house and then my own collection. So I'm like, ooh, I have a lot going on. So that being said, whenever I meet someone new, I have this thing about me, or whenever I'm like sending a gift or a package to someone, even if it's unrelated to crystals, a birthday gift, whatever, I always bring a crystal. Like if I'm meeting someone for the first time or I'm sending someone a birthday card, I always drop in a little juju, and it's just I don't know, I can't not do it. Like I feel like it's just such a special, lovely thing to do is to share crystals with people you care about or want to make a good impression on. Like it's almost always received well, but there have definitely been times where like I pulled up with a crystal and the other person was like, why did you bring your rocks? Like this this isn't necessary. But I think the gesture is usually appreciated. And then on the other hand, sometimes I'll get in a batch of inventory for the shop, and then I'll end up like we just got all of our spooky crystals. We got the cutest characters, and like every spooky season I end up keeping way too many of them for myself because I have this like Halloween obsession that we'll talk about later this month. And this is my favorite time of year is like spooky crystal time where I can get out like the little pumpkins and ghosts. But that kind of just made me think in terms of like using crystals around Halloween. There are so many different ways that you can use crystals. I feel like sometimes there's like a misperception that if you're into crystal healing or using crystals, that like the only way you can connect with your crystals is like through sitting and like chanting and like and then like holding them and like meditating with them. And that's definitely one powerful way to connect with your crystals is to sit in silence and meditate and kind of get into your mindful bag. But there are so many other ways that you can use crystals. Like if that's not for you, you can simply like carry them around with you. You can wear them as jewelry. You can like put them on your mat during yoga. You can make a crystal grid, which is like kind of organizing them in like this sacred geometrical shape. You can put them in your bath if they're water safe. Like, so I also encourage people to not feel limited in terms of the different ways that you can incorporate crystals into your life. My favorite way is to like wear crystal jewelry because it's like a no-brainer. It's like I put it on, I go through my whole day, I have the energy and vibes with me on the go, and then I can kind of switch up my bracelet or necklace or earrings kind of depending on what vibe I'm looking for that day.
There are some that I wear every day. There are certain bracelets I wear every day, and I've been adding to it a little bit. I recently treated myself to the most gorgeous faceted moonstone bracelet. I wanted the necklace. It was a big old shiny necklace. And I thought, well, I'll get the bracelet instead and still have a little piece of it. And I've been wearing it every day. And I switch out my rose quartz for a labradorite, but I love having intention into the crystals that I'm going to choose. As I said, there's some that are always with me, and then some I will switch out depending on what I'm trying to attract into my life that day or amplify or emulate. Sometimes I maybe am not feeling that self love. So I wear it so that I'm more in tune with giving myself that energy. So I love same to wear it. I used to always have a little pouch that I would wear as well and put extra crystals in there. I used to carry them in my bra in all kinds of places. Now I tend to just have the jewelry And then I like to sit with, at the end of the day, different crystals, especially my big old new one, my big new baby that I love so much. It really needs to be on a staff. I keep saying I'm going to make a big old Gandalf staff out of it. I haven't done that yet. But just having crystals in my home, I love to be surrounded by crystals. I'll even have them in the car, but most definitely my bedroom where I know I'm going to be, either I like to practice in here as well, my meditation and my yoga, but where I'm resting, I like to be surrounded by crystals. I always have my windowsill full of crystals that are okay with being in the light. I know some don't like to be in the light too much. So yeah, I think I'm pretty surrounded as well. I don't know if I have quite as many as you do, but I think that's amazing. What do you think? What should you have as a, if you're just getting into crystals, like what are your, like, you should have these top, I could easily name my top 3, but what would you think as your top 5 recommendations for crystals for beginners?
Oof. Oh my goodness. It depends on who I'm recommending to, but I will say there are definitely a handful that are good for beginners, regardless of who the person is or what their intention is. um Shameless shill right now, I do feel like our Genesis NFT collection is the perfect mix of crystals for beginners, and I feel like every single crystal we put into that Genesis collection is like ideal. So that being said, one of my favorites for beginners, and one that like beginners are usually already aware of, is amethyst. Amethyst is the Juju Gallery PFP that's in our listeners right now, the purple crystal. It is, it's just amazing. It is so multifaceted. You can use it for so many things. You can use it for relaxation and sleep. It's great to meditate with. It's great to kind of ease stress. It helps calm the emotions. Amethyst is such a powerhouse, and it's beautiful. You already mentioned rose quartz. Rose quartz is another one when people first get into crystals. It's like super accessible. It's very popular. It's one that people always talk about. It's a heart chakra crystal, so it makes you feel good. It's, kind of gets your emotions settled, kind of helps you relieve stress and anxiety, helps you be more kind and empathetic, open yourself up to platonic and relationship type love. Helps you have more harmony in your relationships, and it's just an amazing crystal on so many fronts. So amethyst, rose quartz, black tourmaline. Oh my God, I love me some black tourmaline. Let me tell you, it is one of my favorite crystals. It's super easy to find. It's affordable. It is a root chakra powerhouse. It helps you feel safe. It helps you feel grounded. Somebody recently sent us a question asking, like, why does my black tourmaline like keep breaking? What does that mean? And I was just like, oh, it means it's putting in some work. It means it's putting in some work, means it's keeping some negative energy from around you. It means it's keeping you grounded, like it's doing its job. You might want to get yourself a bigger one. Black tourmaline is amazing. It helps you feel secure, it helps you feel stable, it helps you feel confident. It is just amazing. I love black tourmaline. So that's the third one I would recommend. Another one I really like that is super popular is citrine. Citrine is like kind of yellow, honey colored, resonates with like the solar plexus and sacral chakras. This is a crystal that is great for like creativity, also great for feeling more energetic and more vitality. It is also known as like the crystal of wealth and abundance. So it's oftentimes brought up when people are like thinking of crystals to help manifest funds and finances. So citrine is popular and has a lot of different intentions people use it for. And then finally, I guess if I had to pick one more, maybe I would go with selenite. Selenite is like this white, shiny crystal. It's a stone of cleansing and purification. It's kind of like the opposite of black tourmaline. Selenite is associated with like the higher chakras, so it's good for meditation and prayer, or like if you're one of those people who's trying to connect with the higher beings and communicate with the beyond. Maybe you want to have some selenite in your arsenal. People have used it for like lucid dreaming and astral travel. I'm not one of those people because I like to, like I said, I have a lot of earth energy in my chart, so I like to stay right here on earth with humans. But I would say those, I could go on for days, girl, but those are a few that I feel are essentials for beginners.
I was absolutely every step of the way same checklist until selenite. I would have switched out selenite on my checklist for clear quartz. But yeah, all the same. I think also another, if we were going to expand it to like seven, then we could add quartz. And I think blue kyanite also is a good one on the list. And correct me if I'm mistaken, but it's to my understanding that both blue kyanite and is it also citrine that never need cleansed? Have you heard that? That they don't, I mean, I still do, but they align all seven chakras and maybe don't need cleansed. Is that, have you heard that? Am I making that up or?
I have heard, I haven't heard, well, I haven't heard it about citrine, but I have heard it about blue kyanite and about selenite and clear quartz, that like these crystals can be used to charge other crystals and like don't necessarily need to be, which is a really good segue maybe to talk about like cleansing and charging and stuff for like anyone who's listening is like, what are you talking about? Like, cleansing and charging your crystals is kind of like this process of like removing the energetic debris that your crystals have accumulated over a period of using them. And, kind of like, I don't know, I hate to use this example, but the first thing that comes to mind is like, if you've been emotionally dumping on someone, and by that, it's like you're always going to someone and complaining about something, or like, just lots of lots of like heavy energy, you start to make the other person really worn out, and ultimately that other person might kind of start avoiding you because you're like energetically draining them. And that's, we like to use the term energy vampire for that. So basically, not that we're energy vampires to our crystals, but like we kind of are. And we're just sucking them dry of all their positive energy for weeks at a time. So when you're cleansing and charging your crystals, you can use sunlight or moonlight or salt water, or like incense or dried herb smoke. And these are different ways that you can kind of free them up and get them cleansed and clear so that you can use them at their full capacity.
Well, they get full, right? They collect these things. They kind of take on and absorb all of this stuff that we release. And so yeah, we want to clear that so that it can continue to do those things effectively. It's like what are your spark plugs, right? They've got to be changed every now and then or they get mucked up and they don't fire correctly. I don't know why that reference came out of my brain from 1,000 years ago. I'm definitely not a car person, but anyway, yeah, they have to be cleansed so that they continue to be effective in our lives. Kind of in the same way, if you get into like, feng shui or different things for energetically cleansing your home, there's this idea that negative energy hangs out in the corners, right? Well, that's where all the bad smells and smoke and weird things, right? If we burn food or cook bacon or whatever, it hangs out in the corners. Negative energy also kind of hangs out in there. So taking the time to, whether it be with the smoke or with crystals or just your intention alone, because ultimately it really is the power of the mind and these are all just tools that help amplify that. But yeah, putting the intention to clearing those so that they can be charged up and ready to go full charge, like you plug it in overnight so that the next day, as you're setting your intentions to work with these tools, it all just runs more smoothly, right?
Beautifully said. Absolutely. You got to give them a break because crystals get tired too. There's only so much they can do for you before they tap out. And it's interesting. Like I mentioned, someone reached out about, a crystal breaking. And, they say that, first of all, let me say, like, sometimes things are just like, sometimes stuff happens. And it's like, if you dropped a crystal on the floor and it broke in half, it's like, okay, honey, well, maybe you were being a little clumsy. But like other times, like the type of circumstance I'm talking about is like, I've had people tell me, like, I was wearing this tourmalated quartz bracelet and like it legit just like snapped like off my wrist, or like like the stone just cracked. And I'm like, and by this, I mean, like, this is something where obviously you didn't do anything to damage the crystal. They say that sometimes when a crystal has kind of served its purpose, or is kind of like energetically overloaded and is kind of out of commission and beyond being able to help anymore, it will kind of put itself out of commission by just breaking and cracking. So you can, at that point, return it to the earth and bury it and kind of, I guess, restart the cycle of life. So I will say too, is like, depending on what it is, I've also broken crystals and like I refuse to let them go. And like a crazy person, I will super glue them back together because I'm like, oh no, like you're staying with me, buddy. But under certain circumstances, sometimes when a crystal breaks, it's like a sign that it's time to let go.
I am legit cracking up as you say that over here. See, I'm so superstitious that I think if it breaks, it breaks. There's a reason, so I got to let it go. Or I have been known to take then those fragmented pieces, right? And I might keep a piece and then give away a piece, or, throw one out for the homies or whatever, right? Bury it, let it return like a salt all to the ocean kind of thing. But my ass is not trying to fix it. I feel like that's bad luck. Don't do that anymore. Oh my goodness. See the mom in me. I can't help but say, "Oh no, don't do that." But you know what? You got to do what you got to do. You got to feel what you are pulled to do. But I love this conversation so much. As you were talking about that, I've thought of instances like that same thing where I've had friends, who maybe weren't aware of cleansing these things and have walked by a thing in it and it just literally break, right? And I once had someone make me a kyanite and citrine necklace because I thought I had heard this about never having to cleanse them. And I tried and tried and tried to wear that thing, and I don't know, probably 5 or 6 times, just it would not, no matter how we would fix it, it would not stay as a necklace. We tried different clasps, we tried whatever, and it became clear to me like, okay, I am not meant to be wearing these two things on my neck for whatever reason at this particular time. So I eventually think let that one go. But it's interesting as you said, sometimes a thing's just a thing, right? And we don't have to look into it so much. But there are times where it becomes kind of like, okay, okay, universe, I'm listening, I see you, I hear you, and I think it's really cool. And when we kind of get those psychic emails is what I like to call them, but those signs and signals from the universe.
Oh my goodness. I have to give a disclaimer now. The only crystals that I have super glued back together are like the really fancy carved ones. Like anyone who's like looked in our shop has seen like our really intricate crystal carvings. Like we have like one, like I'm so embarrassed to admit this, but oh my God. We have all of our like phallus and yoni carvings. The phallus is the penis carving, and like whatever, they come in all different sizes. Like we have the little 1 inch and we have the 3 inch, and like let me tell y'all, I cannot keep the 7 to 8 inch in stock. Like y'all are some freaks, because every time I get these huge crystal penises, they're like immediately gone and sell out so fast. And whatever, I had gotten a bunch of crystal penises, like these big ones, and I had put them all together in like this tote or whatever. It was like a box that I had them in. I was moving things around, and two of these crystal peens bumped into each other, and one of them snapped and broke in half. And I was just like, oh my God, like, am I gonna let this crystal go to waste? Like, it's a clean break. Like, it's a clean break. Like, I know I can save it. So I did. I glued it back together, and I felt kind of crazy afterwards. But then once it was back together in its glory, standing strong and tall, I was like, okay, this was this was necessary.
Hey, in that case, I'd have done the same thing. Once in a while, a little glue never hurt anybody, especially if it's a clean break. But I'm cracking up at the dueling crystal peens, and one reigned victorious over the other. This is absolute gold. This is cracking me up. I love it. I love that those are your top seller, especially the bigger the better, and you can't keep them in stock. I mean, I think that's pretty amazing. We all need that energy in our life, obviously, a little bit.
Yeah, man, it says a lot about the human psyche. It's just like it's it's like of all the shapes. And it's so funny because those always get like the most comments, and people are like, "What? Oh my God, like why? Ew." And it's like, because this is what y'all want. Like, what do you mean ew? Like, this is what you asked for. It wasn't my idea. Like Y'all ask for it. I'm just serving the people. Someone's got to do it. And they're my favorite. Let me tell you, the little crystal peen and yonis, those are my fave. Okay, random side note. I just was thinking about this is not something that I personally do. I don't feel called to do this, but I know several people who do this. Another awesome way that you could use your crystals is making moon water. And I'm not big into it. I think honestly, I just don't have the time and attention to detail to like remember like, oh, like full moon is like this night, and I need to get all my pieces together and put stuff outside. But basically, moon water is like a tradition amongst all witches and occultists, and basically you can use distilled water or rainwater, and you put it with like you can use essential oils or like incense or crystals or herbs or salts, and you leave it out in the moon in a full or new moon, and then like you can use it after that for different rituals. Like you can put it on your altar. You can use it to cleanse your crystals. Curious if you're a moon water person, Abby.
I don't know if you could tell my emojis were seizing over here on overplay. Yes, I am much more of a full moon cleanser crystal witchy woman utilizing the sun, and that has been true for me since my early 20s. I think I've mentioned 46, and since my early 20s I've been a loud and proud pagan. It took me a long time to say it before then because my mom was a holy roller, as I've mentioned, and I was really afraid to say out loud that I wasn't a Christian until I was like 23. And then I like fully leaned into my pagan ways. And yes, since that time, I am all about cleansing my crystals on a full moon. When I was having my cycle, usually had my cycle with a full moon because I generally can tell you the day and all that stuff, much more so than sun signs or any of that kind of thing. And yeah, so I love to do that, and that's often why I have so many crystals in my windowsill, because it's a real easy accessible way to be able to just gather your things. I would say I'm like a kitchen witch, right? Many witches had to hide in plain sight in their kitchens, right? And so it's an easy place to go ahead and have all your herbs and your salts and your cute little containers and your tiny cauldrons and your candles and whatever you need. And then if you're lucky and your kitchen window faces a good shot of the full moon, you don't even have to go outside, although it's really nice to do that. Yes, that was a long-winded answer to yes, honey. I love the full moon, and that is definitely, I love moon water, and cleansing and charging all my crystals and my babies in the full moon.
Ooh, she says she's a kitchen witch. I love that. Oh my God, amazing. Yes, cleansing and charging your crystals during the full moon is amazing, especially when the full moon is at its peak and its cleansing and charging potentials are at their strongest. Full moon, if you don't know, is a great time to focus on the intentions of completion and release. So it's also a great time to just kind of get your crystals out and get them all cleansed for a new moon cycle. And two, it's like, yeah, like we were saying earlier, you have to dedicate time to remove any dense or negative energy that your crystals have accumulated throughout usage. So make time for that, because I've definitely, it's so funny. It's like I've had people come to me and be like, oh, when I first got this crystal, like I could really feel its energy, and I really felt like it was like impacting me in a certain way. And then like after a few months, it's just like it's not working, or I'm not feeling it, or whatever. And it's like sometimes, granted, like you kind of, life has its seasons, and you move into a new season of your life, and maybe there's another crystal that would be better suited for you. Or perhaps you just wore that sucker out and it's time to go put it in the windowsill and be a kitchen witch and let it charge up because you tapped it out. So just something to consider. But oftentimes too, you'll just be kind of, I noticed that with my crystals, I'll be like, it's a very seasonal thing. It's so interesting. Like I'll have things that really call out to me during the summer. And now that we're like literally today is the first day of autumn, by the way. Happy first day of fall. It's officially spooky season. As we move into different seasons, I noticed that I'm kind of wanting a different vibe. And it's interesting because as we're transitioning into autumn, I've definitely been feeling myself kind of leaning away from my old reliables from the last few months and kind of moving into some new juju.
I'm feeling that very same thing, and I love that. I think just internally there's this shift as the seasons shift in our lives, or physically out externally, it's happening. There's just something in us that gets drawn to the energy of that season, and we do need different things at different times. So I think it's just a sign that you're really in tune, right? And so I love that. I As you were talking, I'm noticing myself like this is the time I want my smoky quartz. I want to wear my smoky quartz, or maybe find some amber to go with it, or things of that nature. You're just drawn to, as you said, it's spooky season, and it's so fun for those of us who already are inclined to all things metaphysical and magical, and in touch with nature. And we notice that shift in the seasons. And yeah, I that's my favorite thing. I love that. It's an opportunity, right? As we cleanse those crystals of the muck that they've been taking on, it's an opportunity to like clear our minds and shift our mindset and take notice of what have we been accumulating that isn't going to serve us in the season ahead. Sometimes we only think about, oh, New Year's and this whole thing for the year ahead, and that can feel like a daunting thing to do and keep up with. But if we break it into really honoring and noticing these seasons, you don't have to make a big production out of it. Just slowing down and noticing, you can kind of, I don't know, do a little reset of your own mentally, along with the cleansing of your crystals, to recharge yourself as you head into what might be sometimes a hard time of year. The light, we have less light. Some people get a little of the seasonal affective disorder. So if you can use beautiful things like crystals that maintain that inner light and luminosity, you can kind of get yourself prepared for what's darker outside. You can kind of keep that light inside with the crystals, and all that jazz. I think I'm trailing off, but you know what I'm saying, yeah.
Of course, I know what you're saying. Absolutely. Crystals are, I've said this in spaces before, crystals are always happy. And I mean that. It's like, and I don't know, crystals have different types of happy, but like I've never met a crystal that wasn't happy to be here and ready to serve. Crystals are amazing. That being said, I cannot believe it. These hours fly by so quickly. We are approaching the last 10 minutes or so of our Twitter space. Now is a good time if you've been listening and you have anything you want to contribute to the conversation. You are more than welcome to request the mic. This is a safe space and you are welcome to express yourself. I do want to note that if you want to learn more about anything we talked about, I have a ton of free articles and blog posts on our Good Juju website. We have articles about different new and full moon rituals. We have articles about crystals for every chakra, crystals for each zodiac sign and season, meditation tips. So, all different types of amazing free information is available on our self care blog. So, if you want to dive deeper, feel free to check that out. And the other thing I want to mention is if you feel called to go and buy some crystals, now that we spent the last 55 minutes talking about crystals, we're having our birthday sale. Good Juju just turned 4 years old. I cannot believe I've been a crystal witch for the last 4 years. And we're having a sale to celebrate. So the discount code is 4 years. It's the number four and the word years with no space in between, 4 years. And you will get 15% off any order if you're interested in shopping right now. If you missed that and you need me to let you know again, feel free to shoot a DM. I'm happy to help. Otherwise, if no one has any speaker requests, is there anything you want to add before we start to kind of close things out, Abby?
Just that this was a wonderful conversation, as they always are. I always leave these feeling a little more energized than I started. Really exciting. Makes me thinking a little bit, as you said, as we shift to the new season. And you mentioned that discount. Now I'm kind of thinking, oh, I think I do need some smoky quartz and amber. So I'm planning a little shopping, and I love the token gated experience on your website. It really is super cool. So please, friends, if you haven't checked that out, definitely do. Keep your eyes peeled. We have our own crystal collection coming out soon, soon, soon. I keep saying soon, but uh, it's not going to be past Q4 before we get this done. So I am so excited to share some of that. So keep in tune with our Twitter page if you don't already. And yeah, I can't wait until we get to talk again, my friend.
Yes, I think next week's topic is digital marketing, which I'm really, really excited about. Good Juju is an online e commerce business. So, marketing our business using social media is key to us and very important. And I know that's the case for a lot of NFT brands and collections and a lot of other small businesses in general. So, next week, we're going to talk about different tips and tricks and tools in terms of how you can get a grip on your digital marketing for your business. And then starting in October, we're going to be shifting the time of our mindful business. We're going to be pushing it back a bit later in the evening to better accommodate our own schedules and hopefully everyone's schedules. We're going to push it out so it's not in the middle of the workday and push it to a time in the evening where most people have finished dinner and are kind of starting to settle down for the night. So more to come relating that in October. And otherwise, I think we're good. If we have no speaker requests and there's no one who wants to add to the discussion, I think we're good to wrap things up. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. This is our weekly Twitter space that we do every Thursday. These episodes are recorded and uploaded to YouTube if you want to play them back at any point. Sending lots of love and good juju to everyone who's been listening. And thank you so much, Abby, for being my lovely co host.
Thanks again.
All right. Bye, y'all. We'll see you next week.